Hello everyone, welcome to the channel once again. This video is actually dedicated for the class 12 students, and today I'm going to start with the book for the ISC syllabus. If you remember, the Tempest by William Shakespeare. As far as class 11th syllabus for the Tempest is concerned, it was still from Act 1 Scene 1 to Act 3 Scene 3, where you have already appeared the exam. So as soon as the class 12th classes were about to start, and we were about to start from Act 4 Scene 1. So this class I'm going to give you a brief outline of the scene, that is Act 4 Scene 1. So first let us recapitulate the incidents that we have come across in the play from the very first scene onwards. So if you remember, the play itself, it starts with a very powerful storm in the sea. Okay, thereby the significance of the title, The Tempest. So in that particular scene in Act 1 Scene 1, where we find some gentlemen, some people belonging to the royal families, they were returning from a marriage party, and we are also come to know that that particular marriage party is of the marriage of the princess, the daughter of King Alonso. And these characters, they come across a very horrible storm, and ultimately the ship, it drowns into the sea, and the characters, they are dispersed, they get separated from each other. So when you move on to the Act 1 Scene 2, basically, if you remember, once again, there are three parts of the scene. First of all, the confusion regarding the storm which we came across in Act 1 Scene 1, that gets clear when we are introduced with two characters, namely Miranda, who is very shocked. She is very worried to see that horrible sight in the sea, and she inquires to her father, that is the central character of the play, Prospero, who finally resolves the confusion that we had towards the beginning of the scene. So he finally says that none of the characters, none of the people in the ship, they have been harmed. Now all of them are as safe and fresh at the time when they started their journey. So as we develop in that Act 1 Scene 2, we are also introduced with the servant to Prospero, Ariel, and throughout our lessons in class 11th, we have already seen how industrious and how important that character of Ariel is there in the play. So we are also introduced with another character, namely the slave to Prospero, Caliban, one of the criminals, one of the conspirators in the play. And we have also seen how he joins his hands with the two other characters, if you remember, Trinculo and Stefano, and he actually plots to kill Prospero. And finally, when you move on to the third part of the scene, if you remember, one of the most important characters of the play and the romantic hero of our play, that is Ferdinand, who too was there in Act 1 Scene 1 in the ship. So finally, he reaches near Prospero's cell, and at their first sight, both Miranda as well as Ferdinand, they fell in love with each other. But the most important part, and which is connected to the scene which I am about to start in Act 4 Scene 1, if you remember the last part of the scene where Prospero says that he cannot let this union of these two lovers to be so smooth. So he is gonna throw on difficulties. He is gonna put forward some obstacles which will obstruct, which will always create difficulties in the true union of these two lovers. While moving on to Act 2 Scene 2, if you remember, there's another group of characters, namely Antonio, the King Alonso, his brother Sebastian, and most importantly Gonzalo and other lords. We find them get stagnant in another part of the island. So this is how we move, the plot that keeps on gradually developing. Two scenes regarding which I would like to talk about before I go on to start with Act 4, Scene 1. The scene that is Act 3, Scene 1, if you remember, there's this Ferdinand who has been given some task, rather a menial task to carry some logs of wood. So we find that Miranda, so she's heartbroken to see Ferdinand doing such laborious job. So ultimately that particular task was actually given by Prospero. Now this takes us back to that Act 1 Scene 2, the last part of it, where Prospero says that he is going to make that union of the two lovers to be a bit difficult one. So this is how Prospero keeps on, testing how far that love which Ferdinand declares for Miranda, that is actually true. So that trial, or you can say a kind of a test that is being taken by Prospero from Ferdinand. And the scene that is Act 4, Scene 1, when it begins, once again we come back to Prospero's cell. So now, towards the beginning of this scene, actually, I have written out here the point out like that, the Prospero's approval for the marriage for Ferdinand and Miranda. So, the scene when it starts, we find that Prospero is in a very good mood. Actually, the tests, the trials which he devised for Ferdinand, it seems that Prospero now is satisfied. Now he has, Ferdinand has gained the confidence of Prospero by proving his love to be a true one. So now, Prospero, towards the beginning of this scene, there's a speech that I'm going to read it out for you. So Prospero starts by saying that rather he kind of acknowledge the fact that he has given so many troubles for Ferdinand to make him work so hard. So basically, indirectly you can say that he is saying sorry, or he is apologizing for the fact that he has given too many hardships for Ferdinand. But he also ensures that the reward which he is about to win, the reward that, in other words, that is Miranda, that will actually compensate all the troubles, all the pains that Ferdinand has received. So the lines, it goes like, so Prospero starts by saying that if I have too astutely punished you, your compensation makes amends. So the first two lines, it says that Prospero is basically apologizing to Ferdinand for the fact is that he has given so many hardships to Ferdinand. So, and he also ensures that the prize, the reward, that is Miranda, which he is about to win out of performing all these hardships, that is going to compensate all the pain, all the troubles that he has received. And he also, towards the ending of this speech, so with this tender, with I tender to thy hand all thy vexations were but my trials of thy love. So this is what I started at the beginning, if you remember. I said that Prospero out here is playing the role, at the same time he is also playing the role of a villain in the play. Now villain in Shakespearean romantic play, the role of the villain is actually to create difficulties, to create obstacles in between of the true lovers. So the villain, if I take the example of Much Ado About Nothing or any other romantic plays written by William Shakespeare, you will always come across a particular villain which will always create some opportunities which will divide, which will separate the true lovers till the ending of the play. So out here, Prospero himself is playing the role of that particular villain who will who has already tried so many attempts to separate or to keep the two lovers separated. So finally, he confesses the fact that all the hardships that I have given you or you have received, these were nothing but the trials or the tests to prove your true love. So finally, he says that with my hand, I hand over the rich gift of mine. The rich gift of Prospero is none other than his only daughter Miranda. So finally by this he hands over Miranda to Ferdinand. Also, he makes Ferdinand to take the oath not to break the laws, not to break the confidence that Prospero has showered on Ferdinand till the marriage is solemnized. So this is how towards the beginning of the scene, there's this conversation between Prospero and Ferdinand, where Prospero is giving his approval for the marriage. It seems that he is now satisfied with the trials that he has already tasted out of Ferdinand. Now, the second part of this particular scene, once again we'll come across Ariel coming in, obviously invisible. The presence of Ariel is unknown for Ferdinand and Miranda. So, and Prospero, he desires to have a mask. Now this word is very, very important out here, because like in Merchant of Venice per se, we take Act 4 scene 1 to be the trial scene, or you can say Act 3 scene 2 where Bassanio goes to choose the correct casket. That too is called as a casket scene. If you remember the last scene that we have completed in Merchant, in the Tempest, just the last scene, if you remember, Act 3 scene 3, that is also known as banquet scene. So this particular scene, Act 4 scene 1, it is also known as mask scene. Now what is that mask? This mask will take you back to Merchant of Venice once again, and mask is one of the most important features of Shakespearean romantic comedy. So a mask where the actors wearing masks, they perform on the biblical or the allegorical stories. This form of entertainment, it was a very, very popular during the 16th and the 17th century in Britain. So Shakespeare, throughout his romantic plays, there has been a particular scene or some amount of mask in his play. So out here, Prospero, just to celebrate this, this marriage ceremony, he desires to have a mask, in front of his cell, and he orders Ariel to go and to gather the spirits who will actually perform this mask. So basically, three spirits who actually disguises themselves to be goddesses, actually, who would role play the goddesses. So three spirits, namely one particular spirit that disguises herself to be Juno. Now who is this Juno? The Juno is the wife, or actually the queen of the heaven, and she is the wife of Jupiter, and she is also known as the goddess of marriage and love. So the Elizabethan people, they used to believe that a particular marriage can only be solemnized if the couple that is blessed by Juno. So out here, one particular spirit that disguises herself to be as Juno who appears out here. But when that mask actually it begins, we come across another spirit who is disguising as Iris. Now who was this Iris? The mythological character who plays the role of a messenger to Juno. Okay, and she is also known as the goddess of rainbow or colors. So as soon as Iris comes onto the stage, as soon as the mask it begins, Iris comes in and she hails, she calls for another goddess, another spirit who too will have a role in this particular mask in Act 4 scene 1, and she is Ceres. Now Ceres is the goddess of cultivation and agriculture and crops. So first of all, Iris coming in as soon as the mask begins, she hails for Ceres, and Iris also says that the queen, that is Juno, wants Ceres to leave all other place and to come onto this place of little grass. So this is how the mask scene it takes place. But there are actually two parts of this scene, Act 4, Scene 1. So first, if you remember, once again, let us have a recapitulation quickly. So first, Prospero's approval for the marriage, if you remember. Then he desires to have a mask, the mask scene that I have already mentioned. And the three important characters, the spirits who will be playing their roles in this particular mask, Juno, Ceres and Iris. But at a particular particular point on time when this mask is going on, suddenly we find some changes as Prospero is concerned. So we find Prospero a bit anxious, or rather angry. So we finally come to know, as soon as Ariel comes in, Prospero once again he recollects the thought of the conspiracy that has already been made among Caliban, Trinculo and Stefano. So this scene is not only the continuation of Act 3 Scene 1. This scene is also a continuation of Act 2 Scene 2, if you remember. Now Act 2 Scene 2 is that particular scene where Caliban, he finally devises and he finally reveals his entire plan to kill Prospero, if you remember, under the leadership of Stefano, thereby making Stefano to be the king of this island and Miranda to be his queen. So if you remember, there's a device which was planned by, which was actually planted by Caliban, where he says that afternoon is the time when Prospero takes his rest. So that would be the time when three of them will stealthily enter the Prospero's cave, and finally, first of all, they would capture the magical book of Prospero, and they will crack some nails through his head, and thereby killing Prospero and making Stefano to be the king. So Prospero, with his he has got the power to foresee things. Maybe the things are not in front of him, but he has got the messenger. He has got Ariel to bring back all the informations, whatever is going on throughout this island. So finally, Prospero remembers about that conspiracy, and if you remember, towards the ending of that particular scene in Act 2, Scene 2, Ariel starts beating that tabor and a flute, and the three characters, they start actually they started getting attracted towards this music, and finally Ariel was leading them to Prospero's cave only. So this last part of this Act 4 Scene 1, here this continuation of that particular scene in Act 2 Scene 2. So this particular scene where we find that the three characters, they are completely dirty, and Ariel gives the reference, or he gives the reference how these characters, they have been made to walk through the pine branch, the prickly branch, and so many difficult geographical locations through stones and all that, and finally Ariel placed them to a dirty mantled pool. So when these three characters, they appear on the stage, it creates a lot of laughter for the audience. These three idiots, they are looking completely dirty and filthy in their dirty clothes. So as soon as these three characters, they entered to the stage, and they started entering stealthily, silently into the cave that is owned by Prospero, and except Caliban, the rest of the two characters, Stefano and Trinculo, they were completely surprised and mesmerized to see different types of clothes which were kept in the drawer inside Prospero's cave. So these two characters, namely Trinculo and Stefano, there's a hurry in them that can be seen, that who can take the finest cloth between them. So they started snatching the clothes from each other. It creates a lot of laughter for the audience. But Caliban, who still is definite about the execution of the plan that they have already made. So Caliban, he tries to remind the two idiots to think about the plan for which they have actually come to the cave. But this scene finally ends where several spirits, with the order of Prospero, they appears in the form of dogs and hounds, and they finally kept on chasing these three characters, and they made them to walk down through the stage. Thank you.